Hello and welcome to our program. On our show today, Yogi Mahajan, a writer and somebody who works extensively with young people on helping them understand the self. Yogi, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
You know, this whole conversation and the context of how young people are seeing themselves and seeing how they fit into the rest of the world. Our education system, Yogi, works extensively on how a young person can fit into the world outside. But how a young person fits into himself or herself, there's great paucity of facilitators and people working in this area. You do a lot of work on the self. How has the experience been so far?
Very positive. I think they are very intense young generation, very intelligent and very open, unlike my generation, which was very much weighed down by elders and their opinions, and we didn't have that kind of freedom. And these young people have a lot of freedom, so they can explore more, they can experiment more.
Right.
And that gives them a leverage.
And I think this whole openness is something that they're a generation ready and waiting, and somewhere people giving the inputs have not realized how critical it is and how receptive the young generation is today.
Yes, so it's easy for them to experiment on new ideas. Also, they are more flexible in overcoming their conditionings. You know, whether you are Hindu, whether you are Muslim, whether you are low caste, all these things don't weigh on their mind.
Okay. Easier for them to move beyond boundaries.
Yes.
And I think somewhere though they form opinions fast, but they're not opinionated.
Yes.
And that is what really
helps. And what has helped is also the social media, the internet, so that they have access to thought processes anywhere in the world.
Right, right. And so that exchange of information some way, there's a lot of leveling of the playing field of how they see each other.
This is I think, the greatest thing that has happened.
Wonderful. So when you grew up, and taking you back many, many years, this whole bit about understanding the importance of the self and that realization, what were some experiences and exposure that made you move in this direction?
Well, it's a very funny story. You know, at that time, my father was the Prime Minister of Kashmir, and there was this thing going on about the Maharaja of Kashmir being plots to assassinate him by the Pakistanis and so forth. But every time he escaped an attempt by them. And one of the episodes was that they were boarding a flight, a private jet, from Srinagar to Jammu, where they were to meet with the Home Minister Sardar Patel. And just as the Maharaja stepped onto the plane, he had a look at the pilot and he stepped down. And he refused to get onto the flight. The flight took off and exploded in mid-air.
Wow.
And when my father told me that story, it stayed with me, and I wondered what is there inside of us, that kind of a sensitivity, that kind of a sixth sense, instinct that gives us this kind of a recognition. And then later on, of course, there have been many episodes, even the latest episode of the Malaysian airline MH, which sank, and there was this person who was to board it, and he changed his flight the last moment, and he was saved. So there is a part of our brain which has all this, but we don't have access to it. We call it collective consciousness. So how to access this collective consciousness was my inner desire.
Okay.
And then in 1976, I met Her Holiness Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi, and she introduced me to this inner energy within us called the Kundalini. And with the Kundalini is rising, we get access to collective consciousness. But it's not a one-day happening. There are many centers of energy that have to be crossed over, which could be blocked for various reasons. You know, they're described as 7 centers of energy or chakras. And each one of us is blocked at something or the other.
True.
So we have to work on it, clear it, so that we have the smooth working of this collective consciousness within us.
Yogi, you spoke of saying it's not a one-day effort. It requires many, many years. And at one level, we also understand that whether we are learning a language, Hindi, English or Marathi, take any language, it's always not a one-day process. That also takes years of practice. Then somewhere as how we grow up, why do we feel that all these things which help us tap into our common consciousness or anything related to the spirit is something that can wait? And all the other things and skills that we learn in life need to happen now because they make us productive beings.
Well, now it's the other way around. Because earlier we thought that, you know, spirituality meant that you have to go to Himalayas, sit on a hill or in a mountain cave and get moksha and so forth. So it's something that had to come at the end of your life. But now we realize that this is nothing to do with all this. It's nothing to do with renunciation. It's actually a conscious transformation. It's a process of a transformation of consciousness. And the earlier that happens, the better, because it will help us in all the fields and activities that you just mentioned.
Right.
That it will give us a greater insight into everything we do. It will make us more dynamic. It will give us more penetration.
Absolutely. And I think that's the foundation and the basis of any other kind of learning. Because actually what you're doing is widening your receptivity and sensitivity to learn all the other peripherals more easily.
And over and above that, it gives us an intuitive creativity.
Right.
You know, till you connect or come into balance, your creativity is either from your subconscious area, that is all those kind of conditionings that you've gathered from the past, or it's from your imagination, which is the supraconscious area.
Okay.
But it's not in the balance, it's not in the present. So when you connect with your Kundalini, this creativity is in the present. And then that creativity gives joy to others. So it's not that like modern art that, you know, each one can interpret it the way he wants to. And either you like it or you don't like it. It's something that is joyous to everybody. For instance, take the painting of Mona Lisa. You know, it's become immortal. People just stand and gaze at it because they become thoughtless. Because it has been created by an artist who's a realized soul, you know, Leonardo da Vinci. And I've talked about it in my book, which is called The Game Changer. And explain how this creativity, which is coming from the source within us, which is collective consciousness, gives joy and gives that feeling to others who watch it. Just like music, you know, if it's a work of a great artist who's connected, it connects with the whole audience and the whole audience enjoys it. You know, they need not understand the finer nuances of music, but they enjoy it nevertheless.
So that means it speaks a different language, which reaches out to parts of us which even we don't know, but the expression is joy.
And that language is the language of the spirit.
Okay, all right. So has age got something to do with it?
No, nothing at all.
When does one really get to learn the language of the spirit?
The moment you start seeking, the moment you start asking a question, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? The moment an inquiry sets in within you, it can be at the age of 7, it can be at the age of 16, it can be 30, it can be 60, but it has to come to everybody.
Okay.
Because this is the age of inquiry. We are questioning everything. That is the beauty of this age.
Okay. So when this inquiry comes into our life, whether in our own heads and hearts or our consciousness or around us, and the young children asking this question, what does one do?
One responds to them, and the thing is to come down to their level so that they understand what you are saying. Just like recently the wife of the visiting Chinese president was teaching the children and showing them art and works that it inspired the children so much. They didn't speak to each other, they couldn't, but she struck a chord in them. So the same way we can strike a chord in the children by reaching out to them at their level.
This whole bit about, questioning,
Yes.
and I want to come back to the education system because you work extensively also
Yes.
in this field.
Yes.
I think somewhere, are we encouraging young people and children to ask questions, or are we just using them as receptacles to say, this is information coming your way, it's being poured into you? This whole theory of saying we need young people to ask questions and we need emancipated or understanding adults to be able to address them in the right manner. I think that is critical.
Well, I think now, because of the information technology, the children themselves are inquiring. They search on Google, they search on, their taste buds have been aroused by this whole new revolution in technology, and they don't need us anymore to provoke them.
So do you think Google is a set of information and the teacher is dispensable?
Well, it's coming to that, because even teaching methods now are set on the screen, but the teacher has a greater role to play in a more intimate development of the child's personality. I think the role has shifted a little bit.
So what role does a teacher play today?
A teacher plays a role of, in a way, a person to inspire the child, to remove the webs of confusion that left unanswered, and to give it a direction. That is the role, I think, of a teacher.
Young people, do you think that we need to change our approach? Because you see,
Absolutely.
what we're also discussing is a fairly limited phenomenon in terms of how we see India and the diversity and the availability of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, because the young people don't want anybody to dictate to them anymore. But if you can make them see what's going on in their head, and they are allowed to take the decision, I think they'll take the right decision.
Okay. And I think this bit about adults take better decisions and young people don't is totally, it's a skewed concept anyway,
And they're not open to that.
Right. But it's also a myth, and I think somewhere we also believe that because adults are in a position of power and being able to control and manipulate more resources, their decisions are more valid. And that, I think, is somewhere being challenged.
Yeah, but one thing is that adults do have more experience. With age you gain experience, so they can give you a more mature advice. But the young people prefer if they think they are making the choice themselves. Okay. So you have to make them, bring them around in a way that they see what's wrong, and then they take the right decision.
Equipping young people to make the right choices, and then letting them know that it's your choice, and you need to live with it for the rest of your life.
To equip them. And what I have found with Sahaj Yoga, they can feel the vibrations. Sahaj Yoga, you can feel the vibrations. You can ask, for instance, your vibrations, am I doing the right thing? You can put your hands like this and you can say, is this the right choice? If the vibrations are hot, it means no. If the vibrations are cool, it means yes.
Okay.
So,
but that's when this instrument is tuned to understand that.
So this is what the approach is, to fine-tune the instrument, which they themselves do. I mean, we don't do it for them. We just tell them how to do it, and then it's their choice. But when they do it, the groups that I've worked with, they've done it, they find that the vibratory awareness guides them, and it's coming, the vibrations they're feeling themselves. So it's something that they are more open to follow and conform to. So it's not a mental process.
All right. So that means actually there is a physical manifestation, and the whole bit about how we divide into the body, the mind, and the spirit. These compartments actually have osmosis going on all the time.
Yes. Okay. And the vibrations penetrate everything, and eventually you feel them in your hands.
Okay.
Because the Kundalini exudes vibrations.
Okay.
So you can feel, like you say, I don't like the vibes of the person, or you can see, I don't like the vibes of this place. Or you say, I like the vibes of this person. So you're already feeling everything.
All right.
So it's coming more and more evident than before.
Is it also a fair assumption that inanimate things also exude vibrations?
Everything in life exudes vibrations,
Okay.
animate and inanimate.
Okay. And vibrations are linked to life?
Vibrations are the DNA of the consciousness, of the living force. This whole cosmos is nothing but the dance of vibrations.
And it's so close to what is now being touted as one of the latest things in the last few years, the string theory.
Yeah, the
you
string
know.
theory.
Okay, which is also based on
Exactly.
vibrations.
So science and, you can say, inner search are coming very close. I wouldn't use the word spirituality because that can mean many things to many people.
Right.
But I say inner search are coming together, and they are speaking the same language now.
All right. So science and inner search.
Yeah.
Do you see a conflict between the two?
No, because science is searching outside the same thing, and inner search is searching the same thing within. So there is like one is a reflection of the other. So the Western approach was to look outside. The inner approach, you can say the Oriental or the Indian approach was to look within. But for instance, the chakras within are nothing but the energy centers in the cosmos. And the energy of the Kundalini within is nothing but the reflection of the energy outside, which we call the Adi Shakti traditionally. So it comes back to the same theory that everything came out of energy. And that is what also Einstein talked about, that matter is convertible to energy. I mean, it's not different from it.
All right.
So we've come to the same, the circle, we've come back to the same point. So the circle is complete.
Right. We're going to go in for a short break now, Yogiji.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'd want to understand more from you that you've seen this happen in practice.
Yeah.
You've also written on how energy forms and how role models can be put in front of young people
Yes.
to say this happens, this is true.
Yes.
You still have a choice whether you want to do it or not.
Exactly.
And of course a little more about your journey.
Yeah.
But right now we take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with Yogi Mahajan. Yogi, this talk about energy and the chakras and the common consciousness, which is deeply powerful.
Yes.
It's a huge tool, it's a huge resource at our disposal, and we're still discovering. In fact, it was there, we kind of lost it, and now we're working back into getting to know about it. You've seen this happen actually in the education system, and results have been there.
Yes. Yes.
Can we talk
We've
about that?
seen that, for instance, children at the age of 7, they are so tuned in with the vibrations that they just go on knowing what's the right thing to do, a very simple thing, serving cold drinks to them like the aerated waters. So we said, all right, you check the vibrations of pure drinking water and the vibrations of the aerated water. And they found the vibrations of the drinking water was cooler, and cool vibrations mean positive.
Okay.
So just that, and the whole thing about Cokes and all these things, they were willing to part with. It was something which was very dear to their heart. But on vibrational levels, they took the decision. So, it helps to make your decision, because even when you say you have a free will and you have a freedom to choose, there has to be some benchmark by which you go. And this provides that.
Okay.
And you have to know that it's yours, because if you think it's coming from out of another person, then you're not receptible to it. So if you say, well, I have checked the vibration and I have felt this, and for me this is the right thing to do. For me is a very important word
Right.
in today's vocabulary.
True. And I think also to know that if this is my reason,
Yeah,
it could also be only for a season.
exactly.
That means because that's my process of growth.
Absolutely.
I might be happy with it now,
Yes, yes.
and I
yes.
might want to change, as long as I have the option to change.
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed.
Right.
There's a movement, a constant movement
Right.
of energy. The vibrations are constantly changing.
Right. So this litmus test or this little tool And you've written extensively about it in Master Trick.
Yeah, master's trick.
Master's Trick, okay.
So the trick was for the person to feel everything with vibrations and not go with his mental concepts. You see, we have a lot of mental concepts about things, but concept is not reality. You know, where it's limited. The mental concept is limited to the brain, because the brain can only foresee so much and then not beyond it. For instance, you feel that you see the sky is covered by clouds, but you can't see that beyond that there is an open sky.
Right.
So the mental concept only goes with the senses, but the reality is beyond that. So vibrations go into the reality. So the master's trick is how to transcend the mental concepts by feeling vibrations and then thereafter touch the reality.
You know, this whole concept, Yogi ji, of how we see reality with the limitations of our senses,
Yes.
or the limitations of our physical body, and what really is the reality.
Reality is absolute, because
Okay.
if you take the Einstein view of reality, then he's talking of the mind. The mind is relative. The way you perceive things is relative to one person to the other. You perceive it one way, I perceive. But beyond that, there is a absolute reality, which is beyond our perception.
Okay.
So we are talking of that absolute reality, which is beyond the relative. The mind is relative, that's true, but the spirit is absolute.
Okay. So the reality is the spirit. Is that what
The
you're
reality
saying?
is the spirit. For want of another word, people also can call it God, people can also call it the all-pervading power, but let's not get into any jargon of definitions.
Or semantics, which kind of just confuse the issue.
So just
Okay.
say that, you know, it's an absolute force.
So is there a right and a wrong?
Definitely there is a right and a wrong. For instance, you have the cases of these jihadis cutting off the necks of the hostages. So can you justify that? The mind would like to believe that there is non-duality. But then what about this? How would you justify such a thing? Would you say they are right? So there has to be a right and there has to be a wrong.
So which is also an individual perception?
But is this an individual perception?
Uh,
The whole world has seen it, and
Absolutely.
for the whole world it is
so
something
if you
wrong.
move away from this, or
Yeah.
even move to an action, even if
Yeah.
you move to somebody who's hurt somebody physically,
Yeah.
scaling it down a little, I think the way the mind works
Yeah.
is also an illusion, which can also be a delusion.
Yeah.
I think somewhere to say, because it's so easy to justify anything in the head,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
and bring in a sense of right and
Yeah.
wrong, because it is from this that, so one is how we judge things,
Yeah.
and one is a sense of judgment that you pass a stricture
Yeah, yeah. But
and,
let us take
and modify your behavior accordingly.
yeah. But let us take the example of rapes that are happening every day.
Right.
Now, can you justify it?
Absolutely not.
And then a step further, there was this big controversy that one of these people was a juvenile, he was not an adult, so he should not be punished and all that. So can you find an excuse for him? What is wrong is wrong.
How do we get young people to say you need to choose a right or a wrong based, and equip them with the skills, as you said earlier, because it's very well to talk about them, to say that you need to make these choices constantly.
Yes.
Because the outward pressure, whether it's the media, whether it's home pressure, whether it's peer group pressure, whether it's personal pressure to perform,
Yeah.
that's always playing games.
Yeah, sure. So this is where you have to rely on vibrations.
Okay.
When the vibrations are cool, then that's the right thing to do. And if the vibrations are hot, then that's the wrong thing to do. So it's not so much a mental process of, you know, judging or evaluating. It's more a feeling process. Vibrations flow where there is compassion, where
Okay.
there is love. So they respond to the language of love, of collectivity, of collective consciousness. So to make it, to give you a more precise example, it may be good for me, but is it good for the whole society?
Okay. So how do I make my choices and decisions?
So you have to look at it from the collective point of view.
Okay. And I think that's a very valid point to say that when I'm seeing myself,
Yes.
so if this is my hand
Yes.
and my hand does something wrong, I'm
Yes.
not going to chop it because it's my hand.
Yes.
But if somebody else does something wrong, I'm happy to kind of just smack the hand.
Exactly.
So how do I see myself?
Yes.
Is it limited to my physical body, or am I seeing myself as a part of a larger whole?
Well, the larger picture is always the most important picture, because we are not this speck of the body. We are a larger body, and what hurts the larger body hurts us. Therefore, in every context, like I think one of the American presidents said, that poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. So if we transcend our personal perspective into a collective perspective, then we have the right vision and the right value system, and we can take the right decisions.
Okay.
And then we can all automatically transcend caste, color, religion, you know, all these things.
When the individual is a part of the collective,
Yes.
there is an individual onus
Of course.
and there's a collective onus.
Of course. The individual flower in a bouquet always has its fragrance, but it enhances the fragrance of the bouquet.
So you've written also extensively about courageous women
Yes, yes.
who have made a difference not only to their lives but to lives of the collective.
Yes,
Those beautiful flowers in some lovely bouquets.
yes.
What have been some sterling qualities that you've come across?
The most important quality has been their sacrifice, a sense of sacrifice. The history of India has been based on the foundation, on the bedrock of these great women who made such great sacrifices for their motherland, which was even beyond their sacrifice to their family or husband, or it was like the whole energy of the Shakti came in them to uplift mankind and give it a new value system. So that is why there is such a, you can say, serenity about Indian women. There is such a respect for Indian womanhood all over the world. Not only because she wears this beautiful sari as you're wearing, you know, which gives you so much grace,
Thank you.
but also it gives you dignity of your spirit.
Okay.
You know, you are an emblem wherever you are. You are, you stand for something.
Yogi, today when we talk of values and we talk of tradition, there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of meaning. But I think somewhere the whole way that we use the term and how it is interpreted as jargons, and to say that tradition is and modernity don't go together, I feel that they have a strong link, and I think a lot of tradition is also very modern because modernity
Yes,
is linked to relevance.
Absolutely.
So are we kind of not being able to balance the two in how we project it today?
Well, I think what it is that some people think of tradition as something very rigid, but actually tradition means that which is always moving. One thing grows into another.
Organic.
It's organic.
Right.
It's organic. So a tradition that doesn't grow dies out.
Okay.
A tradition-
That's wonderful.
Yes.
That means if it's still surviving,
Yes.
it's not because people have followed it, but because the beauty lies in it being organic.
And organic. That's the history of India, that we have assimilated all the invaders who came, we took in their goodnesses, we kept our own, and then there was osmosis, and traditions grew, things were added on, and we survived everything. And here we are today. as still a very traditional people. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, we are still regarded as the most traditional people.
Right. And when tradition gets a so-called negative connotation,
Yes.
I think those are the rigid rules
Yes.
which we somehow cling to because of perception, because of, I think, pressure.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yeah. Well, there's also decadence.
Okay.
You know, something that doesn't grow, it stagnates. And what stagnates deteriorates.
All right.
And that's why you had these very great traditions like the Romans that, you know, rose to such glory and then just wilted away. The Greeks, the Egyptians, you know, the Ottomans. They were very great traditions. They achieved a lot in fields of art, culture, engineering, science. But then they just decayed because they didn't grow. They didn't have the spirit. You know, these they grew outwardly, but they left its spirit behind.
Okay.
But we grew with our spirit, and that's for that we have to thank people like Mahatma Gandhi. You know, although my generation never saw him, but everything that he said became the conscience of our generation.
And I think the beauty lies in the fact that even today, when young people are growing up, they see something. They could also see something which probably may not in the long term be sustainable.
Yeah.
But they also have alternatives,
Yes.
you know. And there are times, and as you said, when we ask the questions, that time is right. It could be any age. At that time, just the fact that you have an alternative is so empowering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and also you've seen the movement of that alternative.
Right.
So
It's relevant.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we could dwell a little more after we come back from another short break onto how do we ensure that better alternatives remain relevant.
Yes.
You write about that, you also
Yes.
work on that.
Yes.
But right now, another short break. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with Yogi Mahajan, somebody who writes extensively and also works extensively with young people and adults on helping them understand the self and then how do they make this journey from self to society. Yogiji, we were talking again of how we see transformation and beyond transformation, as you've written and taught young people. How do we make existing things relevant so that actual transformation and that switch moves?
Again, the penetration of vibrations. You can penetrate vibrations in existing things. And the moment you do that, they become relevant. And they become the mosaic of a larger picture that we talked about. So the process is not of analysis, but of synthesis.
And I think that's the beautiful difference, so to say, which we're bridging between the East and the West.
Yes.
So in the Western concept of how they see the inner growth and inner consciousness is saying, okay, so show me,
Yes.
and then I can understand, does it work or not? But in our concept, we say, I feel it,
Yes.
so I know it works.
A shift which is taking place from a mental process to a process of feeling things.
Okay.
That you feel more for things, then think about them, then analyze them. So it's a movement coming from the head to the heart.
And this is so beautiful because when you feel, your mind may not agree, but you know, and sometimes you say, I don't know how I know,
Yes.
but I just know,
Exactly.
because we're always looking for but how do you know? I think the how just gets us stuck in wanting to understand and analyze the process rather than saying no.
So that's where we were at that stage with the growth of our mental process, mental development. And then we saw that how it left us very lonely. We learned that lesson from the West. And having learned that lesson from the West, we have moved on to integrating our own feelings and slowly getting into the central channel within us, which is the channel of ascent.
Okay. When we talk of feelings, Yogiji, I think feelings, for us even to perceive them with our limited body resources, there's a requirement of space. And today we clutter our lives with so many things, whether it's external media, conversations, people, material things. This whole bit of understanding how I feel, I think we're losing out on that. How do we encourage and bring that back?
Well, now people are realizing that, because the end result of what you just said has been fatigue,
Right.
stress. So people have realized that these things are causing them a lot of stress, and they're taking a lot of spending a lot of money, you can say, to overcome their stress with medicines and health techniques and so forth. And it doesn't work permanently, it's only a temporary relief. So this is helping them now to realize that they need to change their lifestyle. So now young people are moving towards that direction. They're willing to take a little less home, so they get a little more space inside. Earlier on, it was a mad rush for the best paychecks.
Right.
But now people have realized that that's not the end and doesn't get you the satisfaction level. A new term which has now come is a satisfaction level.
Right.
Earlier it was the money level, but now people realize that's not the end game. There is something after that, and that is satisfaction level. You may have the money, but you don't have the satisfaction, so what's the use of that money?
So when we talk of Maslow's hierarchy,
Yes.
and we say that it's not vertical in approach, but there's a slicing. At every level, you need all kinds of nourishment for the
Yes,
individual
yes,
spirit and
yes.
soul.
Yeah.
But this bit about satisfaction, is it also an economic, so is there an economic barrier beyond which you look at it? Because for a lot of people in India, getting a job is so critical.
It's very critical, but I'm talking of a little, the kind of groups that I address, who have a little edge over that, who like in the IT, who in the call centers.
So economically,
who are,
they have moved up.
Who moved up an inch, you can say. And they have realized that, you know, these all-night working and coming home, you know, 24/7 and getting, you know, eyes blotched and, you know, spaced out and, you know, having health problems, digestive problems. You know, it's not working out for them. So they're willing to step back a little, take a little less, so they get more regular working hours. They get a day or two off, so they can be with their families. They can get to spend time with their child, which otherwise they miss out completely.
It's a beautiful saying. It says you spend the first part of your life ruining your health, but earning a lot of money.
Yes.
Then you spend the latter part spending all your money to get your health back.
Get health. Now they've understood it. You know, it's a cycle. As you said in the beginning, they are so desperate for jobs that they'll take anything. But I think now we are inching over that in the next step of the cycle, where what you just said. So now they are looking for that space which we talked about.
All right. You also spoke of, you know, young people and particular educational institutions where you work with, who people, young children have come from outside the country. They learn, study in India.
Yes.
And they also learn Hindi.
Yes.
And when they have a choice to give their final exams, they choose to give it in Hindi.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Because, you know, have, for instance, the board exams, you have a choice of a second language. And as a foreigner, you have a choice either to take French or German or Hindi, but they prefer to take Hindi, and they get merit in it.
Wonderful.
You know.
Okay.
There is a recognition now by the West of the richness of our culture, of our heritage, which probably we don't realize as much, we don't appreciate as much. But they, having missed it in their countries, in the very young nations, they don't have that age-old culture. They've broken homes, broken families, money, 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 nothing else. Now they've realized that, you know, that's not enough. There has to be something more.
Okay.
So they look towards India for that.
Right. So what can India look towards the West for in terms of lifestyle choices? What are they doing right, the West is doing right, and we can emulate?
I think the most important thing is cleanliness. You know, we keep our homes very clean. Our kitchens in any Indian home, the poorest of the poor, will be sparkling. You know, stainless steel utensils, literally shining.
True.
But all that is thrown outside the house, on the streets, or the compound outside, or again outside somebody else's wall.
So it comes back to the point of how do I see me and myself?
Yeah.
Am I just this little island entity,
Yeah.
or is the me bigger?
Yeah.
Are we together? And that bit of oneness comes
So
in.
that sense of community, cleanliness, we are number one in personal hygiene in the world. You know, we wash our hands, we use for everything. They use just paper napkins and all that in the West. But when it comes to community cleanliness, we are at the end of the ladder. That's what we have. And I'm very glad that our Prime Minister is taking it up,
Right.
you know, as a
It's a national agenda
national
now. And I think
agenda.
that is great.
I mean, it could have been done long ago, but I'm very glad at least now it is coming into the collective consciousness again.
Okay, wonderful. So Yogi, when we talk of this collective consciousness, does nature, and I'm sure nature definitely feeds into it, and we are really not in touch with the environment and nature around us.
Not at all.
And the loss is all ours.
Yeah, but therefore it has to begin with this awareness that we are a part of the whole, and that nature is a part of us. Everything we do to nature will rebound on us. So it's a growth of consciousness.
Okay.
Earlier is me and mine has to move to the next step.
From me,
Ours.
from me to we.
Yeah, ours.
It's a simple shift of the M, which becomes a W,
Exactly.
and we become a me to we.
And it all takes place in the consciousness. It's not a lesson
Right.
learned. This lesson has been taught in ecology, has been taught in every school from the day one. But till it enters our spin, it doesn't work.
So in our day-to-day lives,
Yes.
in how all of us, young and old, live our lives,
Yes,
does competition play a role?
always. You know, it's always the survival of the fittest everywhere.
And does that clash with the concept of oneness?
It does, you know, it does, because each one wants to reach the top of the ladder, and in the process you pull down the one ahead of you. But those who have learned to connect with their inner spirit have achieved a certain level of inner contentment, and they believe that, you know, as long as they are doing their work to their satisfaction, they're not so much dragged into this game. But those who are not, who don't have that kind of awareness, are neck to neck in this fight.
Okay. This whole bit about individual values and universal values. So do they come and do they have areas of commonality, or can we have, for the same value, a different view at the individual level and a different view at the
Well,
collective?
you know, if you believe that they are laws of nature, if you believe that they are laws which determine the movement of the planets, then they are universal laws.
Okay.
And then the onus is on us to align ourselves to those universal laws if we want to be in harmony with them and ourselves.
How do we get an indication that we are not in harmony with the universal laws?
When you're unhappy,
The vibrations again.
when you are discontent within, you know that you're not in harmony.
Mhm.
So that's the indication.
So how people seek happiness or how they see joy? Supposedly, I think when we are in tune, it's supposed to be something that you're always in a place of happiness and joy.
Yeah.
But it seems to be elusive, it seems to be dependent on so many external things. How does that reconciliation happen?
Well, Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi has reconciled it very beautifully in a system which she calls Sahaj Yoga.
Okay.
And that is that within you is this energy called the Kundalini. And if you tune into her, she harmonizes you with all the energy points which reflect the universal laws.
Okay.
And then automatically when you're in harmony, you are in joy.
Okay.
But joy is different from happiness. Happiness has the opposite, unhappiness. Joy doesn't have an opposite. It's absolute.
What gives you unhappiness?
A lot of things when I see people suffering, and especially when you hear about cases of rape, it's how could we do such things? How could we who have evolved
True.
do such a thing? It's haunting
Yeah, absolutely.
that what has gone wrong, where have we gone wrong? What happened to these young men? What went so wrong that they couldn't see this?
Mhm.
So it's very worrying.
Yeah, and very disturbing. And I
Yeah.
think to find out that how do we then get this right?
I'm not so disturbed by poverty because I don't believe poverty, people who are poor are unhappy.
What gives you joy?
Joy is when one light enlightens another light.
Oh,
That gives joy.
okay. So the spread and the glow
Yes.
and the
And that's why Diwali is such a joyous festival.
wonderful.
Gives such collective joy to everybody.
Wonderful. Yogi-ji, thank you so much for lighting the lamps here in our program and for spreading that joy over here. But thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you.
I really enjoyed the conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.